Hotep, everyone. That presentation was certainly in the tradition of my mentor, Theophilo Binga, that has his imprints all over it. And so it's very interesting because I'm just reminded of nights at Temple University with that type of presentation. It's the meticulousness of Obinga's method that I get from his spirit, and he just conveys that and imbues that to everyone that studies under him. And this is just another reflection of that beauty. Just a very brilliant presentation. I have, and just at a high level, these are, master students. I didn't get this opportunity in my master's degree program to have the opportunity to experience that, and it's just really amazing to see, people at that level, young Africans at that level doing such great jobs. I have the honor to present someone who, in my heart of hearts, when I first encountered him in the Atlanta University Center, teaching in the Atlanta University Center, this young African has a true gift with languages. And I was drawn to him. He, of course, I knew his mother, Mawia Kambon, who was the president of ABSI for 1 year, right? Took a class with me in African history of Africa and the diaspora at Morris Brown College. Sat in on a meta-nature course that I began to teach at Morris Brown College. And it was then that he had been traveling to Ghana. He traveled to Ghana and he learned Tree and quite fluently. And he would bring into the classroom setting all of these profound observations from a linguistic connection level between Tree and meta-nature. And it was then that I really felt the power of this young African and what he is going to mean in the future to the African world. Because for me, in my heart of hearts, this young African is going to be our Obinga over here. That's who he is going to be. He has that type of gift with African languages. This brother has mastered Tree and Yoruba. His master's thesis is comparing these two languages very descriptively. And what he is going to do with his future work is just going to be so monumental and so seminal for our project that it brings a new dimension to it. We need the African scholar over here, just like Obinga, who has mastered many African languages. And this is the role of, a Seba. This is to always get better, to always make the next generation better than we are. And this young African will do things with language, with African language, that I probably won't be capable of doing. But that's all right, because it's going to be done by one of us. And it's going to be done excellently by one of us. And it's going to move our project even farther than we could ever imagine. And that is the beauty of these young spirits coming to knowledge of African civilization. So I didn't mean to ramble, but I love this young brother with all of my heart. And I will do anything to make sure that he moves forward in his quest to learn African languages and to use this as a fundamental part of our African Liberation Project. So without any further ado, I present to you Brother Obadele Kambon.
Right. And I would like to dedicate this first off to my parents who weren't able to be here, Kamal Kambon and Mawia Kambon. I prefer mobility, so I'm going to take this down. They weren't able to be here due to, of course, doing the work. But I would like to acknowledge them. To begin with, if we could distribute these. And also, if everybody can come down, because we're going to do something interactive that's going to require that we all have a spirit that's all together physically, that's all together spiritually. So if everybody who's up there can come down to these first 2 rows, it's going to be very important because I'm going to depend on you to make this presentation work. If everybody can come down, I would appreciate it very much. And I'll wait briefly. And I appreciate y'all doing this for me. I know y'all might have got comfortable in the seats, got those seats warm back there. Have to move to a new cold seat, got to warm that up anew. But I'm sure that we're all going to enjoy this. We're going to have a very interactive presentation. And as you're moving, you can also be listening. There is one thing that I found very profound that myself and Mama Marimba had a discussion about, the quotation that was chosen for the ASCAC flyer, that African champions must break the chain that links African ideas to European ones and listen to the voice of the ancestors without European interpreters. Now, that really resonated with me because I feel a lot of my life purpose connected to that statement that I wasn't even aware of until I saw the flyer. But we're going to deal with that, and we're going to deal with that also in the context of this presentation. And also to have a framework that we're all going to be dealing with is a saying that I like to use, that opportunity is showing people that inspiration is showing people opportunities. Inspiration is showing people possibilities in life. So to be inspired, you're just told that something else exists that you might not have known about, so then you can be inspired to reach those heights. So, of course, this is structure. The introduction, I want to deal with the concept of Iwa, which translates to character. And the title of the presentation is The Concept of Character and Yoruba Conception as it relates to the life of Baba Jedi Shemsu Djehewty. And the reason for this is that I want to help us all to come to an understanding about the conception of character amongst the Yoruba in the life of Baba Jedi. I'm going to deal with the concept of character internally, character externally, as far as relations within the African community, relations outside, dealing with external, particularly dealing with enemies to the African community. Because if you have the conception of Iwakbale, which you can translate to as gentle or humble character, that doesn't necessarily describe the type of character, and you can translate that directly as good character. But you find that if you're dealing with a gentle, what can translate to as gentle character, that doesn't necessarily describe the kind of relations that we need to have with our enemies. And there are other conceptions amongst the Yoruba as well that really encapsulate like paradigms of what it is to have good character. And I'm also going to deal with what's called an oriki, which is a line of praise names that's given to someone who exemplifies what is determined by the community to be good character. And I'm also going to do a poem, if I have time for it, that's also in Yoruba, which is Toju Iwara, which translates to take care of your character. And the objective of this is so that we can see this relationship between character as it's conceptualized by the Yoruba and the life of Baba Jedi Shemsu Djehewty. And if I can start, if I may have permission from the elder. All right, I appreciate that. So first we need to deal with a conception. We need to have the same basic set of assumptions. That's one thing Kwame Ture used to always say. Nana Kwame Ture used to always say that we need to have the same basic set of assumptions. So we're going to briefly outline the Yoruba universe. So first we have Olodumare. Olodumare. Can we all say that? Olodumare. All right. And Yoruba is a tonal language. So these tones are very important. Like the example that Mama Marimba used was Jija Eniyan Dudu, and she got the tones perfect. But if one tone is misplaced, it could be Jija Eniyan Dudu, and that would translate, instead of being African, to be African, it could translate to eating Africans, the eating of Africans. So just that as an example of how important the tones are, and we're going to touch on that. And one thing as far as dealing with the quotation of breaking the chain that links European ideas to African ones, that Olodumare, you can translate that as God, but that is not the best translation. If you say, oh, Olodumare means God, you are lying. You are lying. As a matter of fact, Olodumare and God have been at war for some time now. Olodumare fighting for African people and God fighting for Europeans. And we really need to understand that at some point in time, we as African people will unite these conceptions. Olodumare, Onyame, Nzambi, Ama, Imana, Imun, that all of these conceptions of the Supreme Being will have to be united to kill God, and not just God, to kill God and the devil, because both of those represent European mythology that's designed to kill us. We don't say that one is good and the other is bad. Both of those are instruments, tools of European conceptions of reality to keep us conceptually incarcerated and to kill us. Myself and my brother, matter of fact, who coined the term to encapsulate this idea of God, giver of destruction. Allah, Olodumare might have to kill Allah, the Arab leech living off of African humanity. That these are not, we have to really examine this equal sign. This is like mathematical equations. We have the equal sign and we put a cross through it. Olodumare does not equal God, Allah. But we can come back to that. Also, we have the Iba, which are also known as Orisha. These are the divinities. We can translate this into English as divinities. Once again, notice the use of language. We're not saying that Orisha means God with a little g or means divinity. We're saying that it can translate into English as this. When we say that this means this, it's like, oh, I didn't mean what I wanted to say when I said Orisha. Yes, I did. And I can only explain that in the Yoruba language. That's where we find the meaning, is in the Yoruba language. But I can translate it, I can explain it in English. We also have the Ajah, which are those people who have these malevolent spiritual forces that they can use against us. They translate that as witches, etc. The Ajogun, which are spiritual forces that exist in the universe that can bring war against us if we are not living correctly for other reasons. And that also brings us into the power of sacrifice in dealing with these spiritual entities. You have the proverb, Enirubo le shugbe, which translates to the person who makes sacrifice is the one who Eshu supports. And the role of Eshu is as a messenger to the other Orisha. So issue is seen as being very important because issue is seen as having ashe, to happen. Ashe, the power to make things happen. It's like happen as a noun. Ashe. So if you have the word shele, to happen on the earth, that's something that oshele, ole shele, it can happen. So if you say ashe, whenever someone says something, you say ashe, you're saying that what you just said should happen. It's not necessarily saying that what you're saying is true. It's like what you're saying should happen. So if you're saying, man, we need to get on the case, you say ashe, what you are saying should happen. So ashe is like it's a copy of the power that Olodumare used in creating the universe. So issue is seen as being the organized principle, really like the policeman, you can say, of the universe. Very similar conception to Ma'at, the one who keeps order, the one who represents order, and also the one who represents reciprocity. So if you're not living according to Iwa, then issue is the one who will exact that. Also, you have Agberu, who is the wife of Ishu, who plays a very instrumental role as far as weighing, as far as receiving the sacrifices that are made. In the essay Ifa, many people are familiar with Ifa. In the essay Ifa, you have Ogunda Meji, which is a portion of essay Ifa. And this really speaks to the role of Ori, a person's head. You can translate this to, or also as destiny. Ori is seen as being primary, and this short piece from Essay 5 will illustrate that. Ori kpele atete niran atete gbeni kuosha koso shatini dagbein ori eni, which translates to Ori, my head, I hail you, the one who sees an issue that might be harmful, the one who helps a person even before the Orisha, before the divinities. There is no divinity that can help a person, that can support a person up to the level of a person's own Ori. The Ori is very, very important. So in all of this, we might ask, all right, so we have these spiritual forces that exist in the universe. We have the Ori, which is like a divinity as well. Where can a person's own choices come into play? And that's where we have this conception of Iwa, character. And it's also like, if we look at this conception of Iwa comes from the verb wa, to be in the sense of existence, to exist, to be. So if you say kuniwa, you're saying that that person does not have character in one sense. In another sense, you're saying that that person doesn't even exist. So in one sense of this, for every line, we're going to do a little call and response, and that's part of the reason why I wanted y'all to come down. We have, after every line, and I'm going to breathe, I'm going to take a breath so y'all know when to come in. Y'all will say, Ashe, Ashe. So these are like traditional prayers. You say, Ire owo, Ire oma, Ire aiku kwari iwa. So what we're saying is blessings for money, blessing, and this is things that we're asking for, blessings for children, and blessings so that we won't die and finish Iwa, our existence in this life. So this is where we see Iwa translating as existence, living in this world, so that we don't finish our existence. And there are different conceptions of Iwa that I really want to highlight. You have Iwalaye, which translates to existence in the world. And we have Iwa rere, or just Iwa. And both of these translate to good character. Rere translates directly to good midtones. Iwa rere. You have Iwa kpala, which translates to gentle character or humble character. You have Iwa Tita, which translates to straight character or true character. You have the word Otita, which translates to straight, straightness, truth. You have Iwa Buburu, which translates to bad character. You have Iwa Gbaraku, which translates to that kind of character that sticks with you until your death. You have Iwa Abinibi, which translates to no religion. You can sacrifice forever, you could do whatever you want to do, but character is the main ingredient. You also have conceptions of Iwa as the wife of Orunmila, which is the divinity that is a lot of conceptions of creation are attributed to Orunmila. So you have Iwa as the wife of Orunmila. You have Iwa Ilero Ijinle, which translates to having the character of someone who thinks deeply. Iwa Enyandudu, the character befitting an African. And the conception for African is the exact same conception of black person. So if you say Ile Enyandudu, you're saying the land of the blacks, Africa. If you're speaking a language, and I find this recurrent over and over again, you have before in Chi, you're saying black people. If you have a Bibimain, land of the black people, it's the exact same conception as in Kemet. If you have Wolof, you have Nitkunyul, you're saying black people. If you say Reo Nitkunyul, you're saying the land of the black people. All these things are synonyms that, you know, if you have this debate going on over whether we should call ourselves black, whether we should call ourselves African, that a lot of that becomes a non-issue when we're looking at it from the perspective of our own languages. These should be synonyms for us. And also just dealing with how character is conceptualized among people. And a lot of this is dependent on the community that you're in. So the people who are in your community have a lot to say over whether you are showing Iwa rere or not. So if the community says Baba Jedi is showing Iwa Agba, the character of an elder, this is something that we as a community are saying that based on what it is that we need as a people, that what you are doing, your existence is in line with what we need as a people. And like just to illustrate, like that concept is very dynamic. If you look at how Yoruba people of Ayodeoni these days would deal with Iwa rere, that's very different. So whereas before Iwa rere, you have different things like Abi Ka, Ako Egba, Ita ni Wanfi Kokban Wale, which translates to if we gave birth to you and you didn't learn, or if we taught you and you didn't listen, it's from outside that you will have to learn this wisdom, which just deals with the idea of what a conception of an ideal person does. You cannot be taught and not listen. You cannot be born and not, accept this teaching, especially when it's communally determined that this is something that we need as a community. So connected with that, the central idea that I want to bring up is Omoluabi, which you can translate that as the paradigm of behavior in Yoruba conception. Omoluabi, this is the paradigm of behavior. And once again, I want to reinforce that what is determined as the paradigm is very dependent on the community. So now it might be going to church. If you go to Yoruba land now, they will say, Omoluabi, that is an Omoluabi, because there has been what's called democratic insanity, that everybody has put in the vote to say our paradigm is now moved towards insanity. So the degree to which you approximate insanity is the degree to which we give you the name Omoluabi. And there's a proverb that once again speaks to this idea. Ile lawo ki ato somo lórúkọ, which translates to we look at our house, we look at what's going on, we look at our context, we look at our circumstances before we give a child a name. And you can deal with this on different levels, but particularly the name Omoluabi, this is the paradigm of behavior amongst our people. So we're looking at our context as Africans in this country, and based on our context, we're saying that Baba Jedi is the paradigm of behavior. This is a warrior. So based on what we need, not necessarily following what the Yoruba of today might say is Omoluabi, we're saying that based on what we need in our house, we've looked at our house, and we are giving you the name Omoluabi, the paradigm of behavior. And these are very important concepts. So also we have the people as contributing to a conception of what good character is. And that changes based on where those people are at, what they say that they need. You also have the circumstances, where we are. So we might have different things that are said to be good behavior in a certain context. Like you could say killing someone is not good. But if you're at war, these are different circumstances. We look at where we are before we say, Iwa buburu, this is bad character. Iwa rere, this is good character. He has killed a threat to our community. Also, we have a person's own self-knowledge as playing a role in what Iwa is conceptualized as. Iwa rere. So, based on who you are, there are certain things that just will not, no matter what. Like if you deal with Nana John Henrik Clark, Nana Abakwa Shemsu, the very spirit of history is what we can call Nana Clark. That he was in Georgia and he saw this whitey up on the wall and everybody in the room praying to this whitey. He says, something is wrong with that. My whole community is saying that this is all right. The place that I'm at down south is saying that this is all right, but my own sensibility tells me that there is something evil in this. So he writes a piece, The Boy Who Painted Christ Black. So you have the community conception, you have the context that determines also what our idea of Iwa rere is, and we also have our own self-knowledge that comes to bear. And when we look at what the community determines, that depends on what the objective of the community is. If the objective of the community is to become white, to become basically white, then your conception of what Iwa rere is going to be vastly different from Africans who are fighting for our liberation. So all of this comes into our conception as Africans over here, looking at our house, looking at our circumstances before we say, Omoluabine, this is the paradigm. This is the essence of the paradigm of behavior that we want to be perpetuated. We want this image as Omoluabi perpetuated in our community. These are very important concepts. And just getting back, and there are different things that are expected of Omoluabi, such as mastery of language, and there are different things that come into that. You might have different things like tongue twisters that are used for children in order to get them to really understand the language. So you have like something like which translates to many intelligent people don't know that frogs are very smart. But you can see the wordplay. You're expected to have a mastery of the nuances of the language as far as pronunciation, as far as the tones, as far as all these things before you can even get to deep thought. Ero ijinle. That is how ijinle, deep, ero, thought. This is not my, putting that into the language. This is how deep thought is conceptualized. Ero ijinle ni. This is deep thought. This is also a conception that you find amongst the Yoruba. And as we move on, I want to deal with something that's called oriki, which you can say this can translate as praise names. These are things that are usually used for warriors that are used to praise and also to retell the history of what it is that they did. And my introduction to Baba Jedi was through Science and Oppression. And I was just blown away. I was just using examples from that, like dealing with the Kwele subjects who had a different paradigm that they applied to tests than what it is that the Europeans thought that they would have, like all these different ideas that you found in Science and Oppression. Also, intellectual warfare. And there were certain books that, being in Atlanta, I went to undergrad in Atlanta, I really didn't have a real idea of why these books were so necessary, like intellectual warfare. I'm amongst a whole bunch of African people. I'm like, well, I'm sure this is useful for someone, but I really can't conceptualize. Like Girugu, I'm like, yeah, those whiteys are really crazy. They are crazy. That's real. But at this point, being up at Wisconsin, I really understand the nature of this war. I really understand the nature of this war. Mwalimu Baruti has Negroes and other essays. It's like I'm reading all these now. I'm like, yes, I need to understand why it is that y'all are so crazy. Why it is that y'all are not measuring up to what it is that we need Iwa to be, good character, based on our circumstances. We are at war. This is war. So we're going to deal with this oriki, this praise poem, and we're going to deal with it in English. We're going to deal with it in Yoruba. It's very important for us to hear the Yoruba, and we're going to deal with it, in a call and response fashion. We're going to deal with it in a call and response fashion, and basically the way that it's structured is good character in terms of demonstrated towards ancestors, in terms of carrying on the tradition. This deals really with Baba Jedi's work in Kemet, Baba Jedi's work in carrying on the tradition. This is what can be conceptualized as internal good character. This is the Iwak Bale. Someone who shows Iwak Bale is expected to listen to advice. Someone who is expected to, be humble in front of elders. These conceptions, internal. But, of course, there's a proverb that basically translates to, we know the peace canoe from the war canoe. We know the peace canoe from the war canoe. We can look at what type of canoe we need to build based on our circumstances. If you're rowing around in a peace canoe in the times of war, that's not very intelligent. So we're looking at our context. Also, good character in terms of relation towards those who are yet unborn, those who will carry on the tradition after. Good character. This is internal good character. Also, we're going to deal with good character in terms of external relation towards enemies. And even though we have all these different conceptions of good character that, I've outlined, like Iwak Bala can translate to gentle character, showing kindness to someone who you don't necessarily even have to show kindness to. That this is how you deal with Awuja. This is our own collective. And we can get started if everybody's ready. Is everybody ready? Yes. Is everybody ready? Yes. Is everybody ready? Yes. All right, because we might get a little hype. We might be calling some spirits down. But we're going to go through the English side so everyone knows what it is that we're saying. Then we're going to go through the Yoruba side through the internal good character and carrying on the tradition. So let me also put this up in case anybody didn't get a copy. All right. So we're going to deal with this piece by piece, and we have instructions. This is where y'all come in. This is why y'all, matter of fact, came out of those warm seats up there, because we're going to have a call and a response. After each line, we're going to see that's how it was and that's how it is. That's a translation from the Yoruba response. So after I say this line, and we're working with the right side of the page now, the translation, we're going to have that's how it was and that's how it is. Whenever you see this black line, that's when you know that you come in, this black line right here. That's how it was and that's how it is. Can everybody try that? I'm sure y'all got rhythm, because I don't see nobody who ain't got no melanin in here. So can we have this? That's how it was and that's how it is. That's how it was and that's how it is. That's how it was and that's how it is. That's how it was and that's how it is. And I know y'all getting into it, but you only get a chance to say it once per line. See, every line. So whenever you see this black line, that's when y'all know this is your part. All right? So it should flow, pretty smooth. Does everybody have a copy? All right.